Every now and then, Husker Nation, you need to pull in a Hall of Famer to get some insight.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey everybody, it's DP, Derrick Pearson from 93.7 The Ticket in Lincoln, Nebraska. You are here with us on Locked On Huskers, Locked On Go Big Red, as a part of the Locked On Sports Network. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us each and every day and making this podcast, the Locked On Huskers podcast, your first watch and listen each and every single day. I want to thank the folks from BetOnline for providing us all the props, all the odds, all the lines. They got some good ones this week. Hey, walking into this one, the Huskers are a 7-point underdog against Illinois at home. And the over-under sits nicely at 51. We'll talk more of those numbers as we get into the course of the show. We're going to bring in, quite frankly, this is family. This is the legacy, and that's such. So before we bring them in, let me ask you to like, subscribe, follow. You guys have been exceptional. The jump in the numbers, greatly appreciate you folks doing that. But share this content. Let your Husker Nation friends know that they can get this content online in whatever way you digest your podcast. But let's bring him in. I don't know if he's 56 or 44. Depends on the day. Depends on how he likes to do it. But this is all heads to bed. Husker Hall of Famer Jay Foreman. Thank you, kind sir. What's happening?
Not much, man. I'm 44. 56 was good. 44 is a little bit special. Not a little bit. I feel like I might have the market cornered on 44. So I mean, my dad does, but I think in Lincoln, in Nebraska, I do. So I'm gonna roll with 44 right now.
That 44 number has value. Let's tell the story of why you chose Nebraska over everything else.
Well, I mean, first of all, Nebraska wasn't recruiting me at first. They were up there, whether they want to admit it or not, checking out Lane Kiffin, who's obviously become somewhat notorious and obviously famous for coaching now, and a couple other guys that were on his team. They were pretty stacked, and I ended up having a good game. And next thing you know, Coach Osborne and Coach Young, rest in peace, used to, would start calling me. So, Miami had offered, and that's where I kind of had my heart set on. Everybody in my family went there except for my oldest uncle, who wasn't obviously able to go because once after 1968 and they integrated, they started to recruit African Americans. So all my dad, my two uncles, two other uncles, and I guess my non-blood related uncles went to Miami, and so it was probably like eight brothers from Frederick went there and just took over campus. So we grew up in a Miami household. So the only thing I knew about Nebraska was every year that I really started watching college football, they would play Miami in the Orange Bowl. Of course, Nebraska would win. And one of my best friends growing up his family is from Nebraska. His dad went to Lincoln, lived in Minnesota. And so when I moved there, he was the first kid that welcomed me in the neighborhood. And that's all he talked about was Coach Osborne in Nebraska, Cornhusker Nation. And then so every January 2nd or whatever, the day after, we would always get together. And he'd be so frustrated when we get back to school. And then next thing you know, Coach Osborne's recruiting me, and he comes into school. I knew who he was, of course. In the year that they were recruiting me was 1993, so it was his first year. They were undefeated. They were on their way to play Florida State, and he came to my school. It was like partying of the Red Sea. Everybody literally was running out of class, and Coach Osborne was there. And, my high school at that time was big, but wasn't the biggest. But still, the cafeteria was down in the first level. And so everybody was crowded up around the second level, looking down on Coach Osborne, second and third level. It looked like, I don't know, whatever movie that was, what everybody was throwing toilet paper, but they weren't throwing it on Coach Osborne. But it was kind of like an amphitheater type of deal. Yeah. And so I just got a glimpse of him. And back then they couldn't talk to you directly at school. So he just kind of must have sized me up or whatever. And he was coming to my house later that night, met him, probably said about 5 words to him, to be honest with you. He knew everything about my dad, my grandfather, who played basketball and baseball at Bowie State. For quite some time, he held the rebounding record at Bowie State, which is a college in upper Maryland. And so he knew my family history. I mean, obviously my dad should be in the Hall of Fame player. So, that's the easiest thing he could do, but he knew everything about my dad, both on and off the field, knew everything about my grandparents both on and off the field. So he knew he had to kind of flip my dad before even getting to me, and he did a good job of it. And, he trusted Coach Osborne right from the get-go. Coach Osborne is a man of his word, man of faith, obviously. The only question I asked him if I got hurt, between then or the time I commit and maybe, I got to campus, would I still have a scholarship? And he said 100%. Once I make a commitment, he's committed. So that was huge for me. I think Miami probably thought I was, locked in, and then they went on went on probation for giving guys too much money in Pell Grants. Now look, we're here 30, 40 years later, and they got NIL.
Right.
To be honest with you, for Husker fans out there, where I was probably really gonna go, and I hate saying this, is I was gonna go to Iowa. That's who the first big school that was on. Iowa and Michigan State were the first two big time schools after me. Had a really good relationship with their defensive back coach and running back coach. But they had this funky thing academically where I think they were just trying to get me down there early, but they were telling me I was going to have to take college courses for no credits. And I was like, hey, that's not worth my time. I got one last summer, not even thinking about, they had told me they wanted me to play as a freshman. And then it came down to one crucial thing. And this is what separates really, really good coaches, or not, I shouldn't say, what separates Coach Osborne from other coaches. Hayden Fry was the coach at the time, Hall of Fame coach. Hayden Fry in Iowa didn't make a bowl game at that time. Hayden Fry didn't want to make an in-home visit. Coach Osborne, on the way to Miami to face Florida State, took time to come up and have an in-home visit with me and my dad when he had the biggest game, and not the biggest, the biggest game at that point in time in his career to win his first national championship. And this is the first year that Nebraska kind of went down there. It looked like they were on the same level as, at that time, Florida State. And he came to see me, or at least came to my house or made it part of his trip. That was probably 85% of the commitment. Came on the visit, felt at home, close to home. And that was a big deal for me to have my dad be able to be within, easy travel distance to get there and watch me play. And, Minneapolis is only, 5 or 6 hours, depending on how fast you drive door to door to Lincoln. And so the rest was history. And, I came here with low expectations. I came here just to, my thing was I wanted to graduate, work hard, and be able to start by my senior year. That was it. Now I came here, worked hard. Wouldn't say I worked so hard in school, but it worked pretty hard for me. Had good grades, and then I ended up starting 4 years. And so, the opportunity was there. I really, really embraced football here. I love football. Obviously still do, but love watching football. So it was good to watch tape. I had never played defense before. So everything that I was experiencing was new, but I was welcoming, the good, bad, and the ugly. And so I was able, and I had good guys to emulate. I had Troy Dumas and Clint Brown, Troy ended up being a professional. Clint Brown was a great mentor, and he's a coach at Stephen F. Austin right now. So he kind of mentored me, early in my career.
That's a good sticking point. We're going to go to break. When we come back, first we'll thank the folks in BetOnline. I will pick Jay's brain on a daily basis about the games that are on schedule for this week. And the one that stands out to me is Ohio State, a 15.5-point favorite over Penn State in Happy Valley. But that's courtesy of the folks from BetOnline. You can jump on there and get your curiosity on all of that in play. We'll be right back to Locked On. Welcome back to Locked On Huskers, Locked On Go Big Red. We have Nebraska Hall of Famer Jay Foreman, legend, and an all-around good dude. And that's probably the best part of why we like having these conversations, because Jay has insight for an introvert to get out of his comfort zone and share his stories. makes it all the more makes it all that more interesting. You mentioned Coach Osborne. So for Husker Nation and Husker fans, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Coach Osborne?
I have a pretty strong father figure and had father figures in my life, but Coach Osborne's right there with him. So he's like a dad. If I picked up the phone and called and need to talk to him today, he'd either answer or get back to me. So he's everything you'd want in a parent and a person in a leadership position. When I think of him as a coach, he's consistent. I always say the one thing about Coach Osborne, he worked as hard, but he was fair. And I think most athletes can accept that. It was a lot of hard work. He pushed us to the max. I think he got more out of it. I know he got more out of me than I ever thought I could get, and that's a tribute to him. And with me be willing to go that far. But also one thing that that's I think missing in today's coaches is Coach Osborne really cares. To this day, he'll ask about my family, my kids, loved ones and stuff like that, just like it was 94 and 95 and all that stuff. So Coach Osborne's a big influence. He was a big influence on me without even have to talk to him every day. Just the way he moves and how he handled adversity. We had a lot of adversity. I learned from that and always would think, what would Coach Osborne do? So, he's his legacy as far as his influence on me and on the players is second to none.
How would you describe to Husker fans the things or the traits about Coach Osborne that are necessary in the next head coach at the University of Nebraska?
Well, number one, he had a plan, and he had a detailed plan. And so I'm going to say this again. He had a plan, and he had a detailed plan. And then also with that detailed plan, he also left room to pivot and to compromise as well. So, and here's also one thing about Coach Osborne, probably one of the best play callers of his time. But he always was learning. And so I think if you think of qualities, you want somebody that believes in Nebraska truly. So it's not hollow words. Number two, wants to be here, not only by his words, but by his actions. Number three, has a plan. And 3B is to be a very detailed plan and have a plan for individuals, groups, that means position groups, holistically as a team. And I think one of the better things that he does that he doesn't get a lot of credit for is he had a foundation of core values that he wanted as a football team, i.e. players as well. And then he let the coaches go out and take those core values and become them. So when they were going out selling Nebraska and seeing a player from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, at this point in time was probably all potential. Who knows what would have came out of it? They saw, okay, well, he could possibly be this. He could possibly be that because we know him, right? So he's imploring those coaches to know the players. And so those are the things that, which me saying them are pretty easy, but having those, all of them are been hard for us to find. But I think, they're out there. And I think sometimes you have to foster those as well from leadership positions. So I think it's definitely doable. But, I like where Nebraska's at right now. And I think they're going to be, a team to be reckoned with in the future.
Can this team take the next step? And several conversations this weekend, the question that came to mind was, are we asking too much of interim head coach Mickey Joseph in this short period of time? Can we expect him to make that turnaround? Is that possible, or are we asking too much?
Well, yes and no. I mean, because I think he's probably been, I'm not going to call him intern. I'm going to call him head coach for 4 weeks, right? So that means he has to undo 4 years of some pretty serious bad habits, right? So I think in that sense it's too much. But then also I don't think not, because I know Mickey, I've appreciated and see Mickey from afar. I know what he's built on and what he feels like as a coach. And so in that sense, I say no. But then also I'm going to put it on the players. There's a ton of season left, or we're starting to dwindle down. I know we've been saying this for a while. There's still a lot of season left. You control your own destiny. Every game is winnable. So go out there and win them. And I think they can win every game on the rest of their schedule. They just got to do the small things, which are those details I talked about before, and everything will come. It won't be easy, right? And it never was going to be easy. So that didn't change, but the opportunity is there, and that's the thing to take advantage of it.
Does he deserve the right to pick his own staff and get to work?
Well, I mean, if he's hired as a full-time coach, I mean, of course. I mean, I guess that would be a formality. So, I mean, that's any coach though too. So, it's not an easy decision. And I think the greatest thing up until this point that Mickey has done is now that he's made this decision even harder, I think. And the improvement that you've seen just in a matter of a couple of weeks out of that bye week is more than noticeable. If you're watching the game and don't see an improvement, even when they haven't looked good, right? Even like say Rutgers game, you can see that it's different. So if you don't see the difference, then you're not really trying to see anything but what you predetermined to watch. So that right there is encouraging because that means that there's more in the tank that you can kind of get out of everybody. And I think he's going to continue to do it.
We're going to throw it to another break. Again, we're here with Husker Hall of Famer Jay Foreman. Lots to talk about in this space, of course, as we do this in the next segment, to get inside that space of what can be expected throughout the rest of the season from this particular team. But we'll thank the folks from BetOnline. Again, another prop. This week, it was interesting that Northwestern and Iowa play each other. Iowa is an 11-point favorite. The over-under is 36. That would be the lowest. That would be the poorest offensive game in history. We'll talk more about what's happening this week in the Big Ten when we come back. Welcome back, DP, with the Hall of Famer Jay Foreman. My mind is blown. Once again, Jay, we could miss the lead, which is that in spite of all things up to this point, if Nebraska beats Illinois at home Saturday, they sit atop the Big Ten West. Is that too simple? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense to me. Go out there and win, and you control your own destiny. This is a thing where you continue to get opportunities, right? You continue, and the bye week came at a good time to kind of refresh and recharge for this last 5 weeks. But it's a team that's beatable. A team that's been playing well. And so I think you not only can be atop of the Big Ten West with a victory, but also make a statement throughout the whole Big Ten. So it's a game that hopefully, that they'll come out prepared for and both mentally and physically. And it's a game I look forward to them winning.
Are you surprised at all at the 7-point spread?
No, not really. I think the 7-point spread is normal. And you know what, to be honest with you, Nebraska as an underdog, I like them better than being favorite. We haven't been good as the favorite. So, I'll take them as a 7-point underdog and maybe we'll win by 17. Look, Illinois has been playing really well all year. And to be honest with you, out of the Big Ten West, they've been the most consistent. But they also have some holes. And they've also not blown everybody out. I think sometimes people can get mesmerized by how well they played their last game or their overall record and not dive into the details. I.e., same way with Nebraska as well. You can look at our record, but they don't have a chance. And so maybe that's it. I like Nebraska's chances. Now, they got to go out and earn it. And that's what makes Illinois consistent. They make you earn it. But I think if you go out there and earn it and take it, we'll be happy come Sunday morning.
It's fantastic, right? That with the star power in this game, it's a 2:30 kickoff here, which allows the fan base to kind of engage in a different way. But I look at it this way. If Nebraska defensively does what it can, it has a simpler opportunity. Who are the key guys with the new Kolarvik moves inside to replace Heinrich, who's out for the season? How does that play out? As a linebacker, I'll ask you, how does that play out?
Well, you should be – this is a game that you need to be ready for and looking forward to. There's going to be plenty of opportunity to make plays. You got to go out there and earn it against a good offensive line, well coached. Obviously, I think Brown's, if he's not the best back in the Big Ten, he's one of them. He's definitely one of the best backs in the nation. Now he's starting to get some national accolades, but he's always been that guy. And so it's going to be one up front. The depth of Nebraska, the rotation that they've been working on the last 3 or 4 weeks is going to pay dividends. The guys that are playing at the second level have got to do a really good job of playing with heavy and violent hands and when you come to tackle, come for real. And I think one thing that you can do against a good back and a good running attack is multiple guys to the ball, bringing that heat to them And that's what that's going to do is take away any confidence and momentum that they can get to potentially think that they can, get explosive plays in the run game, because I like Nebraska's chances getting third and medium and third and long. I like their chances this week better than, say, last week against Purdue. So I think, the game's going to be won first and second down, and we got to tackle in space and tackle in small spaces, but we got to win the line of scrimmage. We cannot lose the line of scrimmage, and we got to have guys that are going to make some plays and win some one-on-one battles.
It's been a pleasure. It's always, again, I get the honor of working with this man every day, but I want to share him in this space to folks outside of the circle who don't normally get to hear Jay Foreman break it down as he does. He breaks it down better than anybody in this market. It's a pleasure and joy to work with him. Again, we want to thank the folks from BetOnline. We want to thank the folks from Locked On Sports, the Locked On Huskers podcast, and the Locked On Go Big Red. It is a pleasure each day to bring this to you first thing in the morning. First watch, first listen. That's what we're here for, and that's what we enjoy doing. Jay Foreman will close with those 3 words that Lincoln, Nebraska, and the university loves so much. Go Big Red.